athletics. We continue to do well on our fees. You heard earlier from Dr. Coleman in terms of where we're going in housing, as well as dining services, has done extremely well this year. And so we still expect to send some money to the bottom line. Athletics. So athletics has been a challenge for us this year. We've been working very closely with athletics, particularly with the AD. We were not able to realize all of the revenue projections that were provided. And then we actually had some over expenditures that we're gonna realize through June 30th. Part of what has happened is through some cleanup process, there were some outstanding items, particularly student billing. So there is a process where for athletes, there's a secondary insurance policy that the university has. And so when athletes go for services, there's a first billing of insurance, which is what the athletes carry. And then there's a second billing of insurance, which is what the university carries. Apparently, under a different administration in athletics, this was not being, the student insurance claims were not being filed. And so this year we were contacted from Duke Health with an outstanding balance that was owed. And at the point that we looked into it, worked very closely with AD Perkins, a lot of some of those students are no longer here as athletes. And so the secondary coverage was no longer viable for us to pay or ask the insurance to pay. So the university had to settle a fairly significant amount. And that had to come from the current expenditures for athletics. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding that. So we are going to carry, we expect to carry a negative fund balance, a negative amount to the fund balance for athletics this year, which will increase the overall negative fund balance for athletics. We've been working very closely. We are looking at where we can take down expenditures in several of the operating areas of athletics, but we still have to maintain a certain level of scholarships, and we are bound by certain contractual obligations in salaries that we cannot get out of.
How much was the money that created the deficit?
So for the insurance billing, I think it was about $500,000. And that was a settlement. It was actually much more than that. But we also have, we had quite a bit of travel this year. And we are also working with our coaches on adhering to the recruitment budget. So we had some recruitment expenditures that went over.
This may be more of an audit question for you, but than for you. But if we created a expense, we got billed, I assume. Where did the bill go?
I think it was going to athletics. So as I understand it, and I never got into it, but when you have the student athletes, all students have to carry an insurance policy. That's state law. Then the athletic department carries an insurance policy for athletes. So when the athletes go for any kind of service, the initial billing is to the student's insurance. Then whatever is left, that goes to athletics, and athletics was supposed to then file that with the secondary insurance.
So we're saying that second filing, so someone just simply dropped the ball and did not file the claim.
That's what it appears to be, but it seems like that was going on for a few years.
And do we have a policy now in place to address that so it doesn't happen going forward? Like how are they gonna, what's the remediation for this process?
So athletics is working on, and I think there is a policy already in athletics. That's why I'm able to say what it is. It was not being adhered to. So there were some changes made in athletics a couple of years ago with staffing. But even at that point, I'm not sure that athletics was aware that that the current athletic staff was aware that this was an outstanding item. So it came to me as CFO as a payable, something that the university owed. And so we started trying to work on it.
How long ago was this I mean, exactly when was the actual occurrence of this? 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
AD Perkins, you may have to help me, but I think it went back 3 or 4 years. Yes, some of the insurance that never got filed.
It was baseball. So yeah.
Yeah, so, some of the bills reference baseball players, and we know how long baseball's been gone. And but the gentleman that was in charge of our sports medicine, he was not using the secondary insurance. He didn't apply it, and it is paperwork and things like that. But I guess he thought that was not part of his job, but he was not doing it. And that was Dr. Stafford removed him probably my second month here, and that was just one of his gifts he left with us.
If I may, that goes back to the audit question again. Okay, an audit process should catch a $500,000 mistake, it seems to me. And that's why I wish the audit team was still here to address that, because that's the sort of stuff you keep them around for, to prevent deals like this.
It was over $500,000. We were fortunate that VC Matheson worked with Duke Health to get it down to $500,000. It was more than that.
But to underscore what you're saying, we will certainly reach out to audit. There's got to be a better process, because I don't know how anybody outside of the person that was receiving the billing to file would know. I didn't know anything about 2 insurances that we needed to do for athletics.
Question.
Okay.
I think one of the things that the board needs to address with the support of finance is, what is the viable number in support of a Division I athletic program? I saw up there with your adjusted numbers that it's around 9.8 million, really. And the budget was over 12, a little bit over 12. And we're still going to have some deficits. $500,000 is not the issue.
Right.
Really. I mean, and when we talked about athletics years ago, before COVID, we were at a range of about 13.5, and then there was a subsidy that came in about 3.5 million. And we looked at, I think I still have this analysis in a notebook. We looked at all the schools in the MEAC and also FCS programs with athletic programs, and we determined we needed at that time to be at a range of about 17,000.
Million.
17 million.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result of that, I mean, we are, your concern, what you suggested as a remedy, scares me to death, because if the coaches in a very competitive environment, which is different, our cheese has been moved with NIL and all these other things, we're basically managing players that come in here through our influence, which requires more contact. Second thing is that everything is more expensive. So our performance as far as wins and losses will show up because of this action. And I'm concerned about that, because athletics, we agreed, is the portal to NCCU right now.
I'm sorry, and
is the portal.
Action, no, the action in terms of just aligning.
The modifications around finance will impact all that. Because we'll get what we pay for.
Right. So AD Perkins and I have probably met every day for the last probably 3 weeks. And our last meeting, we talked about what is the actual number that we need to be a Division I school. And
that number's what?
So AD Perkins said it was 13. I said, no, it's higher than that.
It has to be.
So it is probably closer to 16.
AD is telling you the average budget of each school that is in the MEAC And that number is correct. When I look at the average budget, it's around $13 million. Now, I'm not saying that that we don't need more than that here, but it's giving you the average budget of the schools. If you look at the schools in MEAC's budget, that is the average budget.
Okay.
I have it up here.
Okay.
The thing that
AD Perkins was trying to also say something.
Yes, to your point, Chancellor, that is correct. And that's not taking into account, 2 of those schools do not have football, but it is around 13 million. The other piece that is extremely interesting is when it comes to wins and losses, as Chairman Holloway has mentioned, we've been doing some magic on the respective playing fields, to be very, very honest with you. And we have 4 sports. We only have 4 sports, but they're not fully funded, and they are our worst sports. So to your point, when we fund our sports correctly, we're one of the top 3, hands down. The reason why the men's programs is in the top 3 is because most of those sports are fully funded. We have women's sports, a few that are not. So that's why we suffer there. The other piece is what we haven't really addressed is our facility issues. That's another piece. We have softball that's playing in Cary, which our Mr. Gaines mentioned to me was a risk. And we are redoing our tennis courts, but we still have other sports that are off campus too. So until we fill those gaps, we have a few financial problems too. But yes, we probably do need to be a little bit over 13 million, but the average on our MEAC schools, 8 of them, is right around 13. But don't forget, do not take into account, Compton and UMS do not have football, so they really lower the bar for us.
I'm not saying that we don't need more than that. I was just really confirming that the fact that that's the average budget. But I think there is a point that we are not. And Mr. Chairman, you mentioned the fact that some years back, the board charged athletics to. In fact, I don't know if Trustee Walker is also on the board, and he will remember that. The $3 million that plus that athletics is receiving from student housing every year, they ask us to start reducing that and to wean athletics away from that. To be frank with you, not much progress was made on that, frankly speaking. And then when you look at the fund balance, which over the years, it's crept up. We're not going to fill that fund balance in 2 years, okay? It's gonna take a number of years to do that. And I think part of the conversation that you should be having with the board is to let them know how long it's gonna take, because this is the reality. We're not gonna make all the money that we want from tickets revenue, game sale, and all of that. And so outside of raising in a large sums of money or winning championships, simply relying on money coming from fees, it's not gonna sustain athletics, and not just at HBCU. At all of I chaired MEAC for 3 years. We see this not even in Division I, Division II, all schools, that's the issue. So I think with a consistent plan, and I think that that's what you and, AD Perkins need to sit down and look at a long-term planning. What, on average, can we put back into the fund balance? What do we need to cut? And Ms. Matheson, you will remember that we tried to reduce the expenditures by moving some staff away from athletics to another department so they can absorb the salary of that person, and they can still do the job that they're doing for athletics. I believe your auxiliary person was one of them.
And even with the use of appropriations.
We
moved administrative salary.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, so what I'm suggesting here is that it's got to be a combination of things. One, reducing your staff load, cutting some expenditures, raising a lot of money. That's how we're gonna be able to provide the budget that is necessary to sustain the athletics. And it requires a plan. But the board has to know that this is not a plan that is gonna happen overnight. It's gonna take a number of years. I'm just putting it on the table so that they can understand that it requires a combination of things. To increase the athletic budget, gotta raise a lot of money, and we're working on that. Win some championships, which we're working on. And two, cut our expenditures if we can. There are duplicative services that we can move to another department, and they can still do that. Will reduce your overhead. That's really the where the plan should be.
Yes, and we did excellent from ticket sales last year, between football and basketball, game day and walk-up, they were close to about 2 million. And we did generate in, the foundation, gifts and non-gifts, that was close to 900,000, which was very high for us. But the thing with the foundation, those are restricted. So we unfortunately can't put that to the state side as debt because people, you give to where you want to give, and that's in the foundation. So it, we're not able to offset it there, but we didn't do bad in either one of those areas.
Talk about peak sports.
Oh, and one of our biggest issues besides that insurance was our corporate sponsors that I shared in our last board meeting. We have signed a 10-year deal with a corporate sponsorship company that we have to give them
Under a previous administration.
previous administration. Yes, where they get 40% of all of our corporate sponsorships. So that hurts us too. So I think they signed somewhere around a little over 500,000. Well, they got their 40% and we got the 60, but we could sell that ourselves. And this is the other interesting part about it. If we go out and sell on our own, they still get a percentage of what we sell.
You're cleaning up some things that had occurred and put us in a hole.
Correct.
And you have to clean those items up and then get on
The right side.
the right side.
Yes, sir.
So, and that's why I wanted to be sure that the board is aware that even the bill that you're talking about here, it wasn't something that happened yesterday,
No, sir.
okay?
You're correct.
That's why I say how many years ago. So the last 2 years, the athletics program is making progress, a lot of progress.
Absolutely.
But when you are digging out of the hole, it takes a little time
Yes.
to get to the top and to start building on that.
Yes, and I'll say that we have met with council multiple times to find a way to get out of this contract. Multiple times.
How many years left on the contract?
7, because they got a COVID. I think they got
Got a COVID year.
they got a
I
COVID
think
year.
they have at least 6 more years because it was a 10-year contract.
6 more years?
Yes. Yes. And like I said,
We've had numerous meetings with them.
yes.
We have another one that's in about to cost for us to buy it out.
Yeah. He's not going to let us out. The guy's not going to let us out. So, yes.
Okay, so, Chancellor, we,
Did that reflect our cash flow for the end of the year?
yes. Well, I do think that negative to the fund balance may grow a little bit in these last few days, so I will have the final number, but yes. The other thing that we did, we implemented travel cards, this year, and we gave them to, many of the coaches for travel and recruitment. We've dialed that back. After looking at how charges were coming in, we needed to dial that back. So right now, the AD, because of the charges, we had people that were continuing to charge without recognizing that there's a budget. So, because you had the card available, you kept swiping the card. But if your travel budget is $50,000 and you've had flights and per diems and everything, but then you're still you're still going and using the card, then you come up above. So we have pulled all of those back and actually just reinstated the AD and the associate AD for them to manage that through athletics.
But back to the question, if the activity was legitimate, that the coaches were doing, and they were in excess of budget,
It still points to not having enough overall budget to support athletics.
and if you don't have that budget, sooner or later, your program really begins to suffer. So, it's kind of a vicious little circle
It
here.
is.
But if you start to cut the expenditure too much, then your own field performance
Right.
goes down, your wins go down, the
Right.
revenue from there goes down.
Right.
So it's kind of, it's again, it's a
And,
vicious
and
circle.
the two biggest expenditures in athletics, you cannot cut. Scholarships, you cannot cut. In fact, you heard Perkins say that we're actually not fully funded in scholarships. So we don't even have all of the scholarships that we should have. And then we have contractual obligations on some of the coaching positions. And there are a couple contracts you would have to buy out significantly to bring down what we're spending. May I go back to the presentation? Okay, so just wanted to share a few highlights from Campus Enterprises. And one of the things, to the point that's made about a plan, one of the creative strategies that we are using is that since we have the Peak Sports contract, where they're getting so much of anything that is raised for athletics, we've actually started using Campus Enterprises to raise some funds and some things, because Peak Sports can't touch it if it comes through Campus Enterprises. It has to be athletics. So we've been looking to try and figure out how we leverage that and be a bit more creative in some of the things that we're doing. And so Assistant Vice Chancellor McGee and AD Perkins have been working closely on how we can do something that increases the revenue. So, but the mobile kitchen, this is dining. We will have a mobile kitchen on campus at the end of this month. This is going to be useful when we get to football season again in particular, because it's gonna allow us to start offering hot food for the regular concessions, where right now we do popcorn, peanuts, chips, and soda and water, and then we have the food trucks. But this will allow them to do that on site and then have it at the concession areas, as well as support the chancellor's area and the cabanas. We talked about the changeover to Cinnabon and Auntie Anne's at the last board meeting, and Panera Bread changed to 1040 Wing. We have completed the global client service survey for NCCU. We had the highest satisfaction in the Aramark portfolio, and NCCU and Wake Forest have accomplished this ranking in North Carolina. So we are doing really well with our dining program, which means that students are continuing to add to their meal plans and adding additional flex dollars to be used in all of our locations. And a portion of that comes back to scholarship and is able to be used by the university. The dining service revenue has almost doubled from fiscal 21 to now. And you see the numbers in front of you. And so we expect to net about gross 21 million for fiscal year 25. And this is just on meal plans. We expect that we will continue to see increases in catering and some other activities. The university snack and vending RFP is currently out for bid. We've got 3 interested vendors, and we'll be recommending a new vendor at the end of this month. And police and public safety, this has been a real hot button item on a lot of campuses right now about what are you doing for security and safety.